This is the Yay or Nay Show with Alex C. A sports show for sports fans by a sports fan. And now, here is Alex C.
All right, here we go. It is Monday. It is time for Yay or Nay Show with Alex C. A sports show for sports fans by a sports fan. Got a few Yay or Nay questions that have come back on the official Twitter page. At Yay or Nay Podcast is the official address to the Twitter and the Facebook page. Again, at Yay or Nay Podcast. Now, here are the questions that have come back. Now, NFL Draft was the big ticket last week, right? That's pretty much what everybody was talking about, myself included. So I had a bunch of questions in relevance to the draft. So one of the questions was, NFL fans, is the draft a big deal to you? Now, I had already indicated my personal opinion is the draft is not a big deal. I will go over that one more time once I'm done with the conclusion of all the answers to the yay or nay questions. But again, NFL fans, is the draft a big deal to you? 83% of the people that voted said yes, the NFL draft is in fact a big deal to them. Another draft question. Do you think the NFL draft can make your team a winner now? That question I will answer myself right now. Do you think the NFL draft can make your team a winner now? I won't go into the reason. I will give you my answer, but when I go on my rant at the end of this Q&A session, I will give you all my reasoning. My answer is no. I do not believe an NFL team can all of a sudden be made a winner because of the NFL draft. So again, the that the NFL draft makes you a winner right here, right now, at this very second. Do you have to watch the NFL draft, or do you just wait for the results to post? Again, going back to the relevance and the importance of the NFL draft, do people actually have to watch it, or do they just have to wait for the results to post in order for them to be up on what they need to know about their team and the NFL draft? 79% of the people that voted said they have to watch the draft. Okay, 79% of the people that voted said they actually have to watch the draft. 21% said they wait for the results to post. Here is my final question that I put up. What are you watching, the NBA playoffs or the NFL draft? Obviously, we're right in the thick of it when it comes to the NBA playoffs. The NFL draft was going on, and 79% of the people that voted said they're watching the NFL draft, while 21% said they are watching the NBA playoffs. All right, so let me go on my thing about the NFL draft one more time and go into a little more detail. The NFL draft, is it a big deal to me? It is absolutely not a big deal. Outside of the first round, everything else is irrelevant. And it's not because everybody that doesn't make the first round of the NFL draft is going to be, a bum, or they're not going to be good or anything like that, because predominantly most of the league is made up of second, third, fourth, sixth round players, right? We all know that. But here's the thing. You have 200 and some odd people getting drafted every year, right? The number of teams isn't growing every year. There's only 32 teams, which means there's only so many slots to fill. And then you have all of these people who are not going anywhere because they're under contract. So you got 200 and some odd guys getting drafted every year. You got a lot of players that are obviously protected by the contracts that they currently hold. So that doesn't leave a whole lot of slots to get filled. And again, you have draft guys getting drafted annually. So a lot of these guys aren't even going to be in the league for very long. I mean, the average lifespan of an NFL player is 4 years. If they don't get a major contract within 4 years, they're gone. They're out of the league. They're working somewhere else. And they're hoping to get another shot, which is another thing. When you add the people who are on the outside looking in, they've already completed their college. They went through the draft process. They either were undrafted, or there's somebody who got drafted, but somehow it didn't work for them. So now they're working to get their next shot at being an NFL player. You got those people going and trying out every year for all these teams. And again, another new draft class each and every year. So a lot of these guys that are in this draft class aren't even going to be on the team at the end of this season, right? Because again, it's only a 53-man roster. And most teams start up with rosters in preseason in the 90s, and then they got to shave it down to the final 53. And a lot of that is already predetermined by the contracts that are already being held by current players. So a lot of these guys who are getting drafted won't be in the league. They're not even going to make a team. Doesn't matter that they got drafted. They're not even going to make a team. And again, a lot of them are going to be bench riders. They're not good enough to get on an NFL field, practice squad, or out altogether. So when you look at it that way, my thing is, how can the draft be that important when most of these guys that are coming out of the draft, A, won't make it on the team, B, will be on a practice squad, C, are going to be out of the league? Because it just doesn't matter what they have done in college. They weren't good enough to make it on a team this year, or they're going to be a bench rider. So when you look at all those things, I don't see why the draft is important. Is it a tool? Yes. Is it an important tool? Yeah, it can be. But again, not for everybody, depending on where your picks are landing. So when you look at, like, the final pick, for instance, of the NFL draft, he's called Mr. Irrelevant. Why? Because he's probably not going to be on an NFL squad at the end of spring training or preseason, and once you kick off the regular season. So it's already known that these guys aren't going to make it. So when I hear all these people talk about how important the draft is, and then you've got, these guys being draft analysts and putting up these mock drafts and talking about this guy and where he can go and what team he can play for and what attributes he can offer to any team that picks him up. And these are probably the teams that should pick him up. And then they go down the list and go down and down and keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. And they're talking about a bunch of players who, are going to be a bench rider, aren't going to make an NFL roster, they're going to be on a practice squad, or they're going to be a developmental player, which means they're not going to be ready to play for 2 to 3 years. So I just don't see why people are so sold on the fact that the NFL draft is such a big deal. Because again, outside of the first round of the draft, most of those people, again, have a 50-50 shot to make an NFL roster, and then they've got a 50-50 shot to make it onto an NFL field as a starter. Some will be special team specialists. Again, others will ride the bench. Others will be developmental, right? I mean, look at Trey Lance, right? San Francisco grabbed him in the first round how many years ago? Guy still isn't a starter for the San Francisco 49ers. Look at the former Oklahoma quarterback who used to be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Now, he doesn't even have a starting job in the NFL. And it doesn't look like any teams think he's worth a whole lot to go pick him up or make him an offer. Maybe if he gets cut and they don't have to pay that $18 million, then maybe they might be interested in Baker Mayfield. Look at Josh Rosen. He was the first pick overall by the Arizona Cardinals. The following year, he was replaced by Kyler Murray. Look at Kyler Murray. He's been there. They started him from the word go, and he shows you flashes, but look at that team, how they go into these big slumps, and that's with the number 1 overall draft pick in the NFL. And there's a big question mark as to whether the Arizona Cardinals really want to offer him a big contract. I think they'll offer him a contract. I think they have no problem wanting to make him their franchise quarterback, but they don't want him to be one of the highest players and paid players in the NFL. Why? Because he hasn't really shown that he's worth being one of the highest paid players in the NFL. He's not Aaron Rodgers. Heck, he's not even Tony Romo. So, I mean, I can go down the list all day, every day, but you got all these guys that get drafted. A lot of them aren't going to make it onto an NFL field, or they're going to ride the bench, or they're going to be a practice squad, or they're going to be a developmental player, or they're simply just going to be out of the league within the next 3 to 4 years because they're just simply not good enough. And there's always a new recruiting class coming up every year, getting drafted. So they've always got to fight to keep their shot on the bench or as a second stringer or as a third stringer. And it just doesn't work out for them. So when you look at all these things that I just labeled, I personally don't understand how the NFL, and they've obviously done a very good job at it, but I don't know how they've sold everybody on the fact that the NFL draft is a big deal and everybody has to watch it. Then the other aspect of it I don't like. They turned it into a big promotional item. Now you've got, Blue Man Group coming out and some entertaining group. When the Indianapolis Colts were making a pick in the first round, they had some circus act coming out there, and then you have all these people coming out and telling their stories. And I mean, pretty soon it's just going to turn into a big advertising campaign. Here comes the CEO from Tostitos. Here comes the chairman of the board from Lexus, and they're going to be doing the announcements. And then these guys are going to be paying the NFL in order to be able to do the announcements. That's what this is heading to. That's what this is really about. This is about the NFL commercializing the NFL draft and making yet another opportunity to make a money grab. That's what the NFL draft really is. That's what it's become. That's what it's becoming. Again, they're always going to sprinkle in, the parents who lost somebody in the military or somebody who's, killed senselessly in a gun violence accident, or they're going to do that, obviously, and they're going to always do those things. But it's going to, and it already has started to turn into nothing but a big commercial campaign where they're simply just going to start trotting companies out there, letting executives announce who the players are that are getting drafted. And that's literally what this is about. The same as they have people, or I should say cities, bidding on the ability to be able to host the NFL draft. I mean, it's becoming a money grab for the NFL. And I don't understand why a true fan would want to watch that, because it's just getting commercialized, and you're commercializing a situation where, again, most of the players that are coming into the NFL draft are not going to be on a team at the end of the preseason starting week 1. They're just not. Or they're going to be developmental, or they're going to be riding the bench, or they're going to be a practice squad player. So, again, the NFL has done a very good job on, making people believe that the NFL draft is something that you absolutely have to watch as if it is somehow must-see TV. But again, I don't see how it's must-see TV for all the reasons that I've been sitting here naming for the last 10 minutes. It's just not that big. And I think, and I don't know, I mean, again, the polls tell me that I'm wrong. Maybe my sample size isn't large enough, but I tend to think most NFL fans don't really pay that much attention to the draft. Maybe they watch the first round because they want to see, which one of the superstars, especially in the top 10, get picked and by who and in what order. There is kind of a absolute, I don't know what word to use, but I mean, there is a sensation about that, obviously. So it makes sense to me that, people would be interested in that, just like they are in the NBA draft. So it would make sense to me that there is that, little bit of something that makes you want to watch, especially the first 10, maybe even the whole first round. But if you notice, once they get past the first round, they start to speed up the clock and everything becomes kind of nonchalant. But yet they've sold you on the idea that it's a 3-day event. You need to be there and you need to be paying attention. And I'm looking at all the fans. This was the part where I got confused about. So I'm looking at all the fans in Las Vegas who are there for the NFL draft, and they're watching the NFL draft, and they're live and they're hanging out. And every time a name is announced and it's for their team, right? Because they're always panning the camera to the fans of the team that's doing the selecting. But every time a name is called, these guys are screaming, they're yelling, they're jumping up and down. They're acting as if their team just scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. And again, and for most of the people they're screaming for, they're guys who aren't even going to be on the roster at the beginning of week 1, or they're going to ride the bench, or they're going to be a practice squad player, or they're simply just going to get cut by week 1, which is the ultimate thing that I'm talking about. Yet the NFL has sold this idea to these fans that they need to be there. They need to pay attention. They need to watch. They need to focus. And then these people are screaming up and down and going crazy as if they're in the stadium and there's a game going on right there at that moment in time. And that's where I get confused. Because again, you look kind of, I don't want to be insulting, and that's not the idea, but you look kind of weird when you're screaming for a guy who, you don't even know what college he played for. You're watching, and they're talking about Western Michigan, Central Michigan, North Dakota State, and these people don't watch those colleges play, and these people don't follow those players that play for those colleges. They have no idea what these players are capable of because nobody watches those football games for the most part. So for them to scream up and down as if they just got the number 1 pick in the draft and it's number 176 and he plays for Western Michigan and he's a guard or a tackle or a center, as if the average fan really knows who these people are. So it's just a little bizarre to me to watch fans screaming for these people that play for a college that they never watch, and it's a player that they've never seen, they've never heard their name, but yet they're jumping up and down as if their team just selected the number 1 overall pick in the draft, which, by the way, there's another thing. Let's talk about the number 1 pick. more often than not, they're a bust. Again, I just mentioned Josh Rosen. Again, look at Kyler Murray, former number one. Is he making the Arizona Cardinals Super Bowl champions? I mean, you just got to look at the draft. It doesn't always work. And a lot of times these guys go to bad teams because that's the idea. The teams with the worst records, get the highest selections in the draft. That's the way it's designed to work, to even out the playing field as far as where the players go and who they play for. So you don't have one market, gobbling up all the best players. You don't want super teams in the NFL. And so that's the reason why they do it that way. And I get it. But again, just because your team selected somebody and they're in the first round doesn't mean that you've got a gas burner, somebody who's guaranteed to be successful. We've all seen all these first rounders come and go. Look at Mitch Trubisky, barely getting a shot with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And even though he's barely getting a second shot after failing with the Chicago Bears, he's getting a second shot with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they're already drafting his replacement that they believe is going to be able to replace Mitch Trubisky 3 years from now. So basically, after being a failure as a first-round draft pick for the Chicago Bears, after being a failure there, he is pretty much now, like most guys who go and fail, he is pretty much now going to be a pro backup quarterback in the NFL, at best, if he's able to stay in the league, which he should be able to as a backup, especially when you're a first-rounder and a former first-rounder. But he's pretty much going to be living the lifestyle of a backup quarterback because, again, nobody believes he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. If Pittsburgh did, they wouldn't be looking at quarterbacks and they wouldn't have drafted a quarterback. And they obviously drafted the guy who they believe can replace Mitch Trubisky in the next 1 or 2 years. They're going to develop their new quarterback, and then when they believe he's ready, he's going to replace Mitch Trubisky because, again, nobody has confidence that Mitch Trubisky can lead an NFL team to the Super Bowl. And this is a guy who's a former first-round draft pick. So this is what I'm talking about. All right, now let's get into some of the stories I got. Let's move over to baseball really quickly. MLB handed out a 324-game suspension to the LA Dodgers pitcher Trevor Bauer on Friday. The ban, which covers 2 full seasons, is the longest punishment under the sport's domestic violence policy since it was instituted in August of 2015. Bauer released a statement that he will appeal the suspension, making him the first player to do so under the policy. Now, I don't know what's going on with Bauer. I guess there's a new third accusation from another female in regards to sexual assault. I don't know. This thing's crazy. To me, this is the way I look at it for professional athletes. If they don't go to jail, if they don't get arrested and go to jail for the accusations that are, thrown out there about them, I don't know that you can really, I shouldn't say can because they do it all the time, but I don't know that you should be suspending players for things that they didn't go to jail for, because anybody can make an accusation. But if you don't have them serving jail time over the accusation, I personally don't find it right to suspend a player and cost him millions of dollars based on an accusation. Again, and the accusation could be true, but if the people who make the accusations are only out for the money grab and they're just taking the money and they're not going the distance to make sure that these players go to jail for whatever the infraction is that they may have done, and they don't do jail time, then I don't think it's right for these leagues to be suspending players. Because, again, Trevor Bauer, I'll just use him as an example. Or Deshaun Watson, let's use him as an example. Deshaun Watson has, 22 counts of sexual misconduct against him, right? But if he pays out the women and he doesn't go to jail, then why suspend him? I mean, even though there could be a lot of truth to what happened, we'll never know that because he was never among a jury of his peers and he was never convicted of a crime. And he did go in front of a grand jury and they did decide that they didn't believe criminal charges were something they would like to move forward with. So if you have a situation like that, and again, and if these women don't have the ability to put him in jail, and then at the end, all they do is take the money from him, I don't think it's right for the NFL to suspend Deshaun Watson. I'm not defending Deshaun Watson. I'm not defending anybody other than the players who, again, get accused, but they are not found and convicted of whatever it is they're being accused of. If they're not found guilty of whatever it is they're being accused of, then I don't think it's right for the leagues to suspend the players when they didn't do jail time, they didn't get convicted. Because sometimes you can get convicted and maybe you don't get jail time. It could be a bunch of other things that ends up happening, community service, paying a big fine, whatever the case may be. There's lots of other things that can happen. But if you don't go to court and get convicted, then I don't think you should be able to get suspended and lose money over an accusation. Again, and the accusation could be true, but if you don't go to court, you don't go to distance, you don't get the individual to, in fact, go to court and lose and get convicted, then I don't see how a league can determine that they believe that the player did, in fact, do something wrong, even though they were never convicted of anything, and they should be suspended and lose money. So that's my thoughts on it. Obviously, there's a lot of complicating factors that arise in the statement that I just made, but that is the synopsis of it right there. Because, again, if they don't get convicted, I don't think it's right for the leagues to assume that they did do something wrong, they did go against their code of conduct policy, and that they should, in fact, lose money and get suspended. When, again, they didn't get convicted of anything. I mean, look at Ben Roethlisberger. He paid off, 2 separate women. Didn't get convicted of anything. Why suspend him? He was able to come up with a settlement. He didn't get criminally convicted of anything. You can say what you want about Ben. You can put in your personal opinion. I have one too. You can say what you want to say. But if he didn't go to court and if he didn't get convicted, I don't think it's right for leagues to suspend somebody and cost them money when they have not been convicted of anything. So again, Trevor Bauer, 2 years. He hasn't been convicted of anything as far as I know. I don't know all the details of this one. I mean, I got the story in front of me, but I haven't had a chance to go through it all. I guess we could read a little bit more and see if we can find out anything here. This portion says that the suspension began last Friday, actually, which means given the postseason games do not count, Bauer won't be eligible to return until the 19th game of the 2024 season. While on administrative leave, Bauer ultimately missed the last 81 regular season games in 2021 and the first 18 in 2022, but he was paid his full salary throughout, and the fact that he is appealing the suspension means that period will not count as time served. Let's see what else we have. It says, what does suspension mean? Let me see if it gets to the accusations in here. Why would MLB issue such a long suspension after the Los Angeles DA did not see evidence worthy of charges? There we go. There's a good one. Let's read this part. The standards in criminal and civil cases differ from those of a private business. The judge dissolving the temporary restraining order and declining to issue a permanent one does not absolve Bauer of liability within the joint policy. Neither does a prosecutor passing on pressing charges. MLB's imposed discipline is based on its own investigation, separate from the criminal proceedings. The league investigation into Bauer's case lasted 10 months. Details about MLB findings have not been released, but the league's investigators considered more than just the sexual assault allegations of the San Diego woman from last year. They looked into at least one other allegation from an Ohio woman who sought a temporary restraining order against Bauer in June of 2020, details of which were reported by the Washington Post. Hours after Bauer's suspension was announced, the Post published a story about another Ohio woman who accused Bauer of choking her unconscious without consent during sex on multiple occasions over the course of a relationship that dated back to 2013. Bauer strongly denied those allegations, as he did the allegations by the other woman. But the 2 Ohio women told the Post they cooperated with the league's investigation, and we don't know if others were involved as well. And again, I get it. These leagues, they do their own investigation. But how can they find out anything that the Justice Department doesn't find out? And if the DAs are not looking to press criminal charges, that means there is a lack of evidence in order to convict, in their opinion. So therefore, if you don't have anything to convict him on, and yes, you can talk about the difference between civil and criminal, but civil gets you money. And civil has a lower threshold of proof. And civil gets you money at a lower threshold. The higher threshold, which should be higher because you're talking about incarcerating somebody, the higher threshold has not been able to be met by the DA in regards to the Trevor Bauer case and in regards to Deshaun Watson, if you want to talk about both of them. So if criminally there is nothing that they did wrong, again, I stand behind my statement. They should not be getting suspended and they should not be losing money. Civilly, you can make an accusation and you can go through the evidence. But again, the threshold of the evidence, which could be entirely circumstantial, is lower. And also, because it's a lower threshold, that's why they only have the ability to get money. And a lot of times, if I'm finding people that are only looking to get money and they're not looking to prosecute criminally, and the DAs aren't able to get there criminally, I don't know that these guys deserve, again, because it's a he said, she said battle. She's saying he did certain things when they were together sexually. He's saying that she consented to those things that were done. We don't know one way or the other who's telling the truth and who's not. Could be her, could be him, but we don't know. And since you don't know, I don't think it's right to assume. So therefore, they should not be getting suspended and they should not be losing money. All right, let me flip over to the NBA. Obviously, the playoffs are still rolling. In the Eastern Conference, semifinals are in full effect. Tonight, we've got the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers. However, Joel Embiid, as we all know, took an elbow to the face. He's injured. The rumor is he could be back by Game 3 and Game 4. I know there's a lot of hype, a lot of talk about Miami. Everybody's been talking about Miami for a while. I think it's a bunch of hype. Miami's not as good as everybody thinks. They're, not as good as everybody thinks. Are they good? Yes. Are they a little above average? Yes. Are they superb? Are they stellar? Are they ready to be NBA champs? Absolutely not. Are they as good as Philadelphia? Not with Joel Embiid. Although even if Joel Embiid comes back, you got to question at what percentage of Joel Embiid are we going to get? So maybe Miami gets past Philadelphia, and it wouldn't surprise me if they do, only because of the injury to Joel Embiid. The only way that Philadelphia would be able to get past Miami is if you get the Beard to play out of his mind for the entire series, throw everything he's got into it. He would be too much for Miami to handle because he'll just be throwing up assists and scoring like a monster. But he'd have to do it throughout the entire series, which I think he could do. Will he? Now, that's the question. Because I don't think Miami's defense is good enough to stop him. I don't think Miami's as good as everybody says. I just don't know. I question the Beard and his want and his desire. I just don't know that it's there. I think it would be a lot more there if we were talking about Joel Embiid being on the court with him. But without Joel Embiid there to motivate him, I don't know that the Beard can motivate himself enough to get past the Miami Heat. So this one's going to be a toss-up. Originally, if we were talking about Joel Embiid healthy, the way he was playing, then I would give the Philadelphia 76ers this series all day. But right now I say it's a toss-up. And if Joel Embiid comes back, that's what Philadelphia's fighting chance will be. Because, again, I don't know that the desire is there for the Beard to pull it off on his own because he would have to play at a whole nother level in order to get past Miami. Not because Miami's great, but Miami does play pressing defense, much like the Boston Celtics. And he'll have to work to get through that, obviously, and to get open looks. And I just don't know that he has the motivation to do that. And it could be that he just doesn't have the stamina or the legs anymore to do that. Because, again, he has not consistently looked like James Harden throughout this entire season. Boston Celtics, Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee took Game 1. Again, everybody's talking about Milwaukee, defending champions, and this is why Milwaukee is the defending champs and why they're the odds-on favorite to go to the NBA Finals and win it all again like they did last year. Don't get me started on last year. But again, I said Milwaukee wasn't the best last year. Milwaukee's definitely not the best this year. Yes, they took Game 1. Boston had to throw everything they had against Brooklyn. I know that all the NBA analysts and all of the national media guys are running around talking about, oh, Boston, you're not playing against Brooklyn any longer. Now you're going to be playing against the reigning defending champion Milwaukee Bucks, and it's not the same as playing against the Powder Puff. Look, if the Brooklyn Nets are the Powder Puffs, then my question would be, why were the scores so close when you're talking about the games between Boston and Brooklyn? Because they weren't very, very far scoring-wise when it came to the games between Boston and Brooklyn. Those games were close. And the scores were a good reflection of how those games were played out. Boston had to throw everything and the kitchen sink at Brooklyn, and they had to do it for 48 minutes. And they had to go all in, and they had to scrape to get game one, and then they had to scrape to continue to shut down Kevin Durant. And they threw everybody at him, and they were constantly running, constantly moving, constantly challenging, constantly pressuring, doubling down on KD. They were exerting energy, and they threw everything they had into that series. Yes, obviously now they're going to be a little tired going up against Milwaukee. So you would expect them potentially and possibly to come out flat in game one, even though it was a home game. So I'm not surprised that they came out and they lost to Milwaukee. I don't expect them to do so in game two. I don't expect them to lose the series to the Milwaukee Bucks either. But again, for those who are running around and saying that, oh, you're not playing the powder puff Brooklyn Nets, they had to throw every piece of energy they had to get past Brooklyn. Yes, they won the series in a gentleman's sweep, but they had to throw everything they had to win those games. Brooklyn controlled many of those games for a good amount of those games, and Boston had to throw everything they had against them to get momentum back and to get the lead and then to hang on to the lead and win those games. So I think the national media, they just don't like Brooklyn for whatever the reason. Kyrie, KD, Steve Nash, who knows what their reasoning is. Obviously, universally, they decided that Brooklyn's not their team, but Boston had to put every piece of energy they had and exert every bit of energy they had in order to get past Brooklyn. They'll be able to do the same thing against Milwaukee. And besides, Milwaukee, without Middleton, Holiday, they're calling it a shooting slump for Holiday. No, this is what Holiday does in the playoffs. This is nothing new for what Holiday does in the playoffs. Wow, this is what he did last year. And he'll have one quarter where he plays good, and then everybody will act like he had a great game when, in fact, he didn't. He was almost non-existent in the first half of the game against Boston in game one. And in the second half, he scored 17 points. 17 points. I don't consider 17 points to be a lot. I don't. I get it. NBA analysts will try and tell you differently. But I don't consider 17 points a lot. And Holiday will continue to be in his shooting slump. He's not going to come out of it for long. He has spurts. He has moments. But again, this is what I was talking about. This is what him and Middleton did all last year in the playoffs. They disappear, and then they have a moment where they come back. Yesterday was his moment. Middleton, gone. Holiday will continue his slump, continue to do what he does. It's all going to be on the shoulders of Giannis, and Giannis will not be able to do it on his own. And I don't think he's going to get the support of Holiday. Boston gets past Milwaukee. Suns, Mavericks, game one tonight. This one, to me, is a 50-50. It's going to be a slobber knocker. I get it. Phoenix Suns' best record in the NBA and, of course, in the West. But Dallas plays lockdown defense. Luka playing lights-out basketball. I don't know that the Suns have enough to get past the Dallas Mavericks. It's going to be a good series. It's at least going to go 6. It could go either way. I'm not saying Dallas is guaranteed to beat Phoenix, but I would not be surprised if the Mavericks upset the Phoenix Suns. The Grizzlies and Golden State. Well, here's the deal. This is funny to me. So Memphis isn't playing Minnesota anymore. You're not going to be able to survive playing against a team who gets 20-some-odd point leads and then just gives it away because Minnesota is an overrated team with a bunch of overrated players. Fact, not fiction. Nobody can dispute the words I just said. Minnesota is an overrated team with a bunch of overrated and overpaid players. A bunch of people who are stars, potential stars, but yet they're getting overpaid like superstars. That's Minnesota. Memphis is young. They're exciting. They're fun. But again, they're not going to get past Golden State. And I said it before this series started. I said it once we knew pretty much that they were probably going to get past Minnesota because Minnesota kept blowing leads. And they're not going to be able to get Golden State to give up leads. It's not going to happen. And Golden State did this without their star man in the middle as he gets ejected in the second quarter of the game. And yet Memphis at home with Draymond Green out of the game after the second quarter still could not get the win. And for these guys to talk about how, Golden State, they're just so lucky that Ja wasn't able to execute the final play. No, they should have never been in a final play scenario. They had no Draymond Green, and they were at home. And they lost to the Golden State Warriors, who are absolutely the better team. Imagine how bad of a loss it would have been if Draymond Green would have played the full game. But without Draymond Green, they still couldn't win. And then, you had some NBA haters and analysts or whatever you want to call them talking about, Golden State got a bunch of lucky bounces and they got a bunch of rebounds that they wouldn't have got. Well, they probably would have got those rebounds if Draymond Green would have actually been in the lineup. So, yes, I do think they would have got the offensive rebounds and boards that they got that you're claiming they wouldn't have gotten. Absolutely, they would have got them. And Golden State's going to roll because Memphis, these guys are talking about, Memphis should be happy that they were right there. They were so close that they could have won that game. That should have been their win. No, it should have, and it should have been their win by a lot because, again, no Draymond Green. He got knocked out in the second quarter. No Draymond Green. And you still lost and you were at home. Memphis doesn't have a prayer to win this series. Probably a gentleman's sweep, but Golden State's going to win it. They're the superior team. And once Draymond comes back, it'll be theirs. I heard there's a rumor now that they're talking about possibly suspending Draymond Green for a game on top of the flagrant, which, again, I haven't seen that particular play, actually, in regards to the flagrant. A lot of people saying that, he got what he deserved. Some, very few, were saying that he shouldn't have. I have always been one to subscribe to the theory that if it's a question mark and it's a question as to whether it be a flagrant 2 or a flagrant 1, and it's a question mark, and we're talking about the playoffs, then you should probably just give him the flagrant 1. And if he makes a second mistake, obviously he's out of the game. But some people are saying he got what he deserved. Draymond's obviously saying that it was a reputation foul that got him the flagrant 2 because of things he's done in the past. I've heard some other crazy arguments that make no sense because the way he acted after he got ejected from the game is why he got the flagrant 2 to begin with. That just proves that he deserved to get the flagrant 2. That's kind of the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. So something after you get ejected from a game that you do proves that that's the reason why you should have been ejected from the game. That's the dumbest thing I have heard. Again, and a lot of people, want to see Memphis be successful. And why would you not? I mean, you want to keep it as competitive as possible, so I understand that. But again, they're not going to get anywhere with Golden State. Golden State's the superior team by far. That was the best momentum you're going to get from Memphis, coming off a series win at home, game 1, going against the Golden State Warriors, a perennial team in the West, and you still lost without Draymond Green, and he was out since the middle of the second quarter. So no, Memphis is not that good. Again, Ja Morant's exciting. I've always said that. We all agree he's a human highlight reel, but he's not the reason why this team wins. Matter of fact, they do just as good, if not better, without him in the lineup. So the Memphis Grizzlies don't have what it takes to get past Golden State. So there you go. That's what we got going on. That's what it is right now. So we'll just have to wait and see. I want to go one step further in regards to Joel Embiid really quick because there's a story that kind of interests me. It says Joel Embiid, here's what the Philadelphia 76ers must do against the Miami Heat. Now, I said you were going to have to see the beard go off. That was my personal assessment. Let's talk about what the experts say here. So what does Joel Embiid's injury mean to the Philadelphia 76ers' chances of reaching the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since drafting Embiid in 2014? Friday, the Sixers announced that Embiid suffered an orbital fracture and a concussion during the late stages of Thursday's Game 6 win to close out the Toronto Raptors. Adrian Wojnarowski reported Sunday that Embiid would not travel with Philadelphia to Miami for the first 2 games of their series against the Heat, but could return for Game 3 or 4. back at home. Now, how Philadelphia attacks must shift without Embiid. This is what I want to talk about. Embiid's durability this season makes it difficult to predict how the 76ers will play in his absence. Remarkably, Harden has yet to play without Embiid, having missed both games, including a 7-point home loss to the Heat in March that Embiid sat out after the trade deadline. It's hardly challenging to predict that Philadelphia's attack will be different statistically, and Embiid has been an enormous part of the team's offense. His 37% usage rate this season ranked 10th all time since individual turnovers were tracked starting in 77-78, minimum 1,000 minutes. Now, given that Embiid's unique ability as a scorer in the post and out of isolations, the Sixers can't shift those possessions to whoever replaces him in the lineup. Instead, most of them will surely go to the perimeter trio of Harden, Tyrese Maxey, and Tobias Harris. Harris boosted his scoring average per 36 minutes from 17.4 to 21.2 in 9 games without Embiid this season, while Maxey skyrocketed from 16.2 to 24.8. After veterans Paul Millsap and DeAndre Jordan proved lacking as backups for Embiid, Philadelphia coach Doc Rivers embraced using energetic second-year big man Paul Reed in those minutes late in the regular season and against Toronto. Reed solidified non-Embiid lineups though the Raptors still outscored the Sixers by 7 points in 44 minutes with Embiid on the bench and Harden on the court during the first round. So basically what you're getting is Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, they got to step up, as well as James Harden. They did it in the regular season, and it looks like they need them to do it now more than ever in the postseason if they want to get past the Miami Heat. All right, so I'm way past my time here. I did have some other stuff to go through. I was going to go through the NFL draft team grades. We will do that tomorrow. I promise we'll get to that. I got it pulled up. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to pull the trigger on it, but we'll go through it tomorrow. Matter of fact, I might even pull up some more research in regards to that so I can get a little more in-depth than I originally planned. You guys enjoyed tonight's playoff action. We'll get at it tomorrow. This is Ye or Nay Show.